I knew something was amiss in my own home, so I faked a trip to see my sister. As I spied from afar, my older neighbor put a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Just wait for midnight, the whole truth will be revealed." At the stroke of midnight, my breath caught in my throat at what I witnessed. Have you ever wondered just how far the people you love would go for money? I found out when I spied on my own son from across the street and discovered his cold, calculated plot to have me declared insane and steal everything I had. My name is Eleanor, and for 40 years, this house has been my entire world. My late husband and I built it with our bare hands. Every corner holds a memory: the kitchen where we danced while making Sunday breakfast, the living room where we watched our son, Robert, grow up, the garden we tended to until our fingers ached. When my husband passed away 7 years ago, the silence was deafening. So, when Robert and his wife, Audrey, insisted on moving in, I was grateful. "So you won't be alone, Mom," he'd said. I thought it was love. God, how naive I was. The first few months were nice. We had family dinners. We laughed. Audrey was so attentive, always helping with groceries, making my favorite pot roast. I thought, what a blessing. But about 4 months ago, something shifted. It was like a switch flipped. The smiles became plastic. The conversations felt forced. And then the whispers started. Every time I'd walk into a room, they'd clam up. Robert would shove his phone in his pocket like he was hiding something. Audrey would flash a tight, fake smile and change the subject. "What were you talking about?" I'd ask. "Oh, nothing important, Mom," Audrey would chirp, her voice sounding hollow. "Just work stuff," Robert would mumble, refusing to meet my eyes. Then I noticed other things. The door to my old master bedroom, the one I used for storage after my husband died, was always locked. Always. "Why is that room locked?" I asked one day. Audrey answered way too quickly. "Oh, there's a moisture problem. We just don't want your things to get ruined." A moisture problem? I didn't remember any moisture problem. And I definitely didn't remember giving them permission to do anything in there. At night, I started hearing things. Footsteps, muffled voices, even laughter that wasn't theirs. One night, around 11, I heard the front door open. I crept out of bed and peeked down the hall. I saw Audrey at the door, greeting a young woman with a small suitcase. The woman handed Audrey what looked like cash. Audrey pocketed it, then led the woman straight to that room, the one with the moisture problem. I heard a key turn, a sliver of light spilled out, and then click. The door was locked again. The next morning, I said nothing. I just watched. Audrey, with that perfect smile that didn't fool me anymore. Robert, glued to his phone. "Sleep well?" I asked casually. "Like babies," Audrey chirped. Liars. Both of them. But I needed proof. I had to know what was happening in my own home. That afternoon, while they were out, I tried my master key on the bedroom door. It wouldn't turn. They had changed the lock. On a room in my house. Without telling me. My heart hammered against my ribs. A hot, furious rage started to build in my chest. Who the hell did they think they were? But I swallowed it down. Rage wouldn't help. I needed a plan. And then it hit me. I would fake a trip. I'd tell them I was visiting my sister in Boston for a week, and I'd watch what they did when they thought I was gone. That's when I went to Moses, my neighbor from across the street. From his upstairs window, you can see right into my house. Moses is 72, a widower like me, and my closest friend. I told him everything. What he said next turned my blood to ice. "Eleanor," he said, his voice low, "I've been seeing strange things for weeks. People coming and going at all hours. Always with suitcases. Audrey meets them at the door, they hand her cash, and they go inside. It's like a business, Eleanor. And a secret business is never an honest one." My worst fears were real. I wasn't going crazy. I told him my plan to fake the trip. "You can stay here," he offered immediately. "The guest room has a perfect view. We'll watch them together." I could have cried with relief. I wasn't alone in this. That night, I put on the performance of a lifetime. "I'm off to visit my sister for a week," I announced at dinner. Their reaction was instant. Robert's eyes lit up. Audrey's smile was so wide, so damn enthusiastic. "That's wonderful, Mom. You deserve a break." The next morning, I packed a suitcase, called my sister on speakerphone so they could hear, and Robert insisted on driving me to the bus station. He wanted to make sure I really left. At the station, he hugged me. "Call us when you get there." I looked into his eyes, searching for any flicker of guilt. There was nothing, just impatience. I waited until he drove off. Then I slipped out a side door, hailed a cab, and went straight to Moses's house. And then we waited. That night, around 6 p.m., it began. A silver car pulled up. A young couple got out. Audrey opened the door before they even knocked, took their cash, and welcomed them in. I felt the floor drop out from under me. Moses just stood beside me, his face grim. "It's real, Eleanor. They're renting out rooms in your house. Renting rooms. In the house my husband and I poured our souls into." But the real gut punch came when I saw a light flick on in my old master bedroom. Our bedroom. Strangers were sleeping in the room my husband and I had shared for 35 years. Strangers were walking on the floor where I had cried for months after he was gone. The tears that came weren't from sadness. They were tears of pure, molten fury. How could my own son do this to me? Over the next 2 days, it was a revolving door of strangers. Every night, new faces. Every morning, they'd leave like ghosts. And every day, I watched Audrey cleaning, changing sheets, preparing for the next round of guests like a seasoned hotel manager. This wasn't some side hustle. This was an operation. Then, Moses told me something that changed everything. "Eleanor," he said, his face grave, "2 weeks ago, I saw Audrey at the corner coffee shop with a man in a suit. I overheard some words. Mental competency, medical evaluations, and nursing home. The world stopped. Nursing home. They couldn't be. This was bigger than just money. This was darker. They weren't just stealing from me. They were planning to get rid of me. I called my lawyer, Ellen. She confirmed my worst nightmare. With a corrupt doctor and a shady lawyer, they could try to have me declared incompetent, commit me against my will, and take legal control of my house. Eleanor, you need to be careful, she warned. If they suspect you know, they could get desperate. Friday arrived. Moses had said Fridays were different. He was right. It wasn't just couples. It was groups. By 8 p.m., I counted 11 strangers in my house. My home had been turned into a fully operational, illegal hostel. And then at the stroke of midnight I saw it. The back door opened. It was Audrey, and she wasn't alone. A man in a dark suit was with her, carrying a briefcase. They slipped into the old workshop shed in the backyard. Through the grimy window, I saw them looking over a thick folder of papers. After 20 minutes, the man left through a back alley gate. This was my chance. The next morning, I told Moses I had to get into that shed. It was risky, but I had to know what was in those papers. I snuck into my own backyard like a thief, my heart pounding. Inside the shed, on my husband's old workbench, was a metal box. It wasn't locked. I opened it. Inside were stacks of cash, at least $10,000. But beneath the money were the documents. A rental agreement for my house, with Robert listed as the owner. A medical evaluation form with my name on it for progressive cognitive decline. A quote from a nursing home called Golden Hope Residence. And then, the last document. A power of attorney that would give Robert total control over everything I owned. And next to it, a handwritten note from Audrey. The words burned into my brain. Dr. Lee Sandro confirms he can administer a mild sedative during the appointment. Signature will be obtained during a state of induced confusion. They were going to drug me. They were going to drug me, have me sign away my life, and lock me up to rot. I snapped photos of everything with my phone and ran. Back at Moses's, I called Ellen. "This is a criminal conspiracy, Eleanor," she said, her voice tight with fury. "And we are going to set a trap." Her plan was brilliant. On Monday night, I returned home, pretending I'd just gotten back from my trip. I played the part of the happy, clueless mother. The trip was wonderful. I lied, my heart breaking with every word. That night, I crept to their door and listened. "She doesn't suspect a thing," I heard Audrey whisper. "The appointment is for Friday. We'll put the sedative in her breakfast. By the time she realizes what she signed, it'll be too late." It was all I could do not to burst in right then. But I held back. I had to see this through. On Thursday night, just as Ellen planned, the house was full of illegal guests. And at 9 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. It wasn't a guest. Municipal inspector, a firm voice announced. We've had a complaint. Panic. I watched from my room as Robert and Audrey tried to lie, claiming the 7 strangers were friends visiting. But the inspector wasn't a fool. One by one, the guests admitted they had paid to stay there. The whole operation crumbled in minutes. The fine was $10,000. And that's when I made my entrance. Good evening, I said, stepping into the living room. I am Eleanor Vega, the owner of this property. The color drained from their faces. And no, I told the inspector, looking my son dead in the eye, I did not authorize any of this. After the inspector and the evicted guests left, the silence was heavy. Mom, I can explain. Audrey started. Before what? I cut her off. Before you drugged me and had me sign away my life. I told them I knew everything. The shed, the doctor, the nursing home, the sedative. Robert just collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. Audrey, cornered, turned vicious. Fine. We'll leave your precious house. You have until noon tomorrow, I said, my voice ice. The next morning, they were gone. I was alone in my big, quiet, violated house. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers and cleaning and crying. I decided not to press criminal charges. I couldn't send my own son to prison, no matter what he'd done. His punishment would be living with the knowledge of his betrayal for the rest of his life. I got a letter from him a few weeks later. He and Audrey had split up. He was working construction to pay off his debts. He said he was sorry, that he didn't deserve forgiveness. I put the letter in a drawer. I haven't answered it. Maybe I never will. It's been 6 months. I've reclaimed my home. I painted over the old memories, and I'm making new ones. My old master bedroom is now my art studio. I'm learning to live with the scars. I learned that love can be the perfect disguise for a trap, but I also learned that self-love is the strongest shield you'll ever have. I survived. I'm alone, but I am free. And after everything, that is more than enough. So, I have to ask you all, what would you have done in my place? Would you have been able to forgive him, or would you have pressed charges? Let me know in the comments. I really want to know what you think.